Welcome to the Happier Life Project, the official podcast from the award-winning mental health and wellness app, My Possible Self. Hosted by broadcaster and journalist Gabby Sanderson.
Hello and welcome back to the Happier Life Project, the podcast that explores the stories, ideas and strategies that can help us all lead happier, healthier and more fulfilling lives. I'm Gabby and today we're going to discuss one of my favourite topics, and that's yoga, which is often portrayed as a series of poses performed on a mat, perhaps accompanied by incense, calming music, and the promise of becoming more flexible. But for millions of people all around the world, yoga is far more than exercise. It's philosophy, a spiritual practice, a community, and a framework for navigating life's inevitable ups and downs. On Sunday, the 21st of June, we mark International Day of Yoga. And this year's theme is Yoga for Healthy Aging. And in this episode of the podcast, I wanted to explore what yoga teaches us beyond the physical postures, so that we don't just live longer, but live well for longer, mentally, emotionally, and physically. In a world that often feels noisy, fast-paced, and increasingly disconnected, how can an ancient practice help us find calm amongst the chaos, build meaningful connections, and live with greater intention? For this very special episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down in person in a radio studio with Zoe Taylor, founder of Ministry of Yoga in Lisbon. Fresh off the mat with Zoe, as I'm currently immersed in an intensive, challenging and deeply rewarding yoga teacher training course at Ministry of Yoga, led by Zoe and her teacher Vinay Jester, along with my wonderful fellow trainees. Shout out to you because I know you're listening too. We've been exploring not just how to teach yoga, but how to listen more closely to ourselves, trust our inner wisdom, and connect with what yoga is really inviting us to practice, both on and off the mat. And that was my inspiration for this conversation. You will hear Zoe and I explore the deeper aspects of yoga, from its philosophy and spiritual roots to its role in supporting mental well-being, chronic illness, and healthy aging. We also touch on yoga's ethical guidelines, whose ancient teachings might be more relevant now than ever before. Whether you're a devoted yogi, yoga curious, or someone who's never even stepped foot on the mat, I think you'll find plenty of wisdom in this conversation that extends far beyond the yoga studio. Please do settle in and join us as we explore how yoga might not just change the way we move, but also the way we live. So, ready to find a healthier, happier you? Let's get started. I'm actually in a lovely radio studio in Lisbon, in Portugal, and I'm joined by today's guest, who is my personal guru and yoga teacher, Zoe Taylor from Ministry of Yoga. Welcome to the Happier Life Project podcast.
Thanks for inviting me along, Gabby. It's great to be here.
It's been a long time coming for me. I mean, you probably wouldn't know that. You speak so articulately about yoga, the philosophy, the anatomy, why we move the way we move. And I've been like, gosh, her wisdom needs to be heard by more people. And I guess being that we're coming up to International Yoga Day, I was like, right, now is the time. And also because I'm training very intensely with you. So let's introduce you to our listeners a little bit and talk about your, I guess, entry point into yoga would be a good place to start, and how that led you not only to become a teacher, but traveling across the world to do it in Portugal?
Yeah, so I guess it all started. Well, the first time I tried yoga was when I was 19 years old. And to be honest, I didn't like it.
Mm.
It didn't feel right. I felt it was a bit slow and a bit boring. And I really did need to do some physical things. I've got a little bit of hypermobility in my body and I need to look after it. Otherwise, my joints get a little bendy and they can get painful, essentially. And so 6 years later, I tried yoga again, and I was just at a normal gym, and I'd had a gym membership where I was going to run on the treadmill and maybe do some other classes, group classes. They had Pilates and some other things. Zumba, I think, was one. And I thought I'd do that stretchy thing, that slow thing called yoga. And I'm so glad I did. It literally changed my life for the better.
And so from then on, it was like, got to learn more, got to deepen my practice.
Yeah, well, I think that the biggest impact was in the first 3 months of practicing yoga once a week, maybe twice a week, because that's all the gym offered, 2 classes a week. I still remember it was Monday and Friday, and I just, I literally changed my whole schedule to make sure I could be at those classes. And about 3 months in, I noticed some significant changes. So I had some chronic knee pain from an injury doing martial arts. I'd been trying some taekwondo in my early 20s. And although I'd gone through physiotherapy and I'd gone through other things, basically every time I went up and down stairs, I would still feel this pain in the joint. So I thought at the age of 25, I'd have to live with chronic pain. And that is what was probably my first surprise about yoga. In 3 months' time of practicing, I had noticed a significant reduction to the point where I didn't even notice which knee was originally causing the pain. So for me, that was life-changing in itself.
Did you know anything about the codes of conduct, the philosophy, the spiritual element of yoga?
The teacher at the time, she was teaching more of like a postural-based yoga practice, but she would always make sure that we had this ending relaxation, which we call shavasana in yoga. And as you'd lay down on your back, it seems like such a simple thing to do in life, but it's very rare that we do it these days, not on a bed, but on a flat surface where you lay down, you relax your body, you don't go to sleep, but you try and stay sort of connected to your breath, connected to the sensations of your body. There's many things that we can do while we're in Shavasana, but primarily it was just to do a deep relaxation for 5 minutes. That also was profound for me because I felt like I would wake up out of that pose, out of that last position, and I was like a new person. What I had walked in with and what I'd walked out with had literally lifted the weight off my shoulders in a physical sense, an emotional sense, and mental health sense.
That's such a good point, and I want to dig deeper into that. But I'd like you to talk first about your career, because it breaks down a lot of the myths, I think, about like people that are yogis or yoga that become yoga teachers. Like there's certain maybe images that come to mind, and that's sort of heightened, I think, by things like social media and Instagram. But like you were quite a sort of career driven. Is corporate the right word for your line of work? Previous line of work?
Yeah, I would call it a corporate lifestyle. I was definitely in amongst the rat race. To be honest, it was a rat race on a small island to begin with. So I'm from Tasmania and a small island of Australia. And I started my working life, apart from my part-time job at McDonald's when I was 15. I started my working life at 18, unsure of what I wanted to do at university. I actually got admitted into a position in a bank, the main bank of Australia, the Commonwealth Bank. And I started off as a bank teller and then obviously got the taste of experiencing independence. I had my full-time wage and within about 2 or 3 years, I got my first promotion. And so by the age of 23, 24 years old, I was starting to manage teams, branches, things that you find out on the street when you go to normal banks. And I was on a mentorship path to management and leadership and female executives and things, because there was definitely a pathway to encourage women into leadership. So I was lucky to sort of take a path and be held by people and mentors through that career. Eventually, I became an internal consultant for the banking services and worked in all sorts of things, from call centers to corporate bankers, retail banking. And I worked in leadership development and also strategy implementation. So it was quite an interesting and diverse role. And during that time, I undertook a MBA, which is a Master of Business.
Wow.
And so I was working full-time and studying a master's degree part-time. And so I didn't really have much time for my life. But that's when I found yoga. And so having a 1-hour practice with a 5-minute complete relaxation, it allowed me to actually execute those things, meet assignment deadlines, and meet my career expectations of my workload, because I had sort of a way to focus and concentrate my mind on the things that I needed to get done. And that's what yoga had also taught me, ways to concentrate and use the intellect and the thought productively in real life. So, well, yoga is real life too. But so yeah, halfway through the master's degree in business, I decided that I was getting more and more understanding that work isn't just a job, but work is what you communicate. Work is what you commit to the community, is what your contribution is going to be to the world. While you live here, what are you going to do to make a difference? And so when I was studying the MBA, I realized what has been the most influential thing in my life that has made a difference. And I thought, it's yoga. And so I realized that I was going to pivot in my career and use my Masters of Business and put that energy and effort into sharing yoga to the world. I hadn't even done a yoga teacher training myself at the time, so I was lucky to have a supportive yoga teacher that happened to say, does anyone want to become a yoga teacher? And I put my hand up and said, could I? And she said, yes, we'll talk about it. So that's when the journey became real.
Was it also quite scary because, like, you are taking a gamble, aren't you, on security, like probably, I'd imagine, a good financial income and all of the things that means, the quality of your lifestyle and living and accessibility to even go on holiday and all of that stuff. You were like going, I'm going to shelve all that and I'm going to basically surrender to yoga and just dive head first, I suppose, because it sounds like that's kind of what you did.
Yeah, I mean, at the age of 30 is when I completed my yoga teacher training when I was 30 years old. And I'd already started dreaming of retirement. And I was like, when I retire, I'm going to have money and I'm going to go around the world and I'm going to live in different places. I'm going to speak different languages and I'm going to be less on a time frame. I'm going to absorb cultures and I'm going to feel the world. And then I was like, hang on a minute. I'm 30. Why am I dreaming of when I'm 65, if not 70?
Yeah, if you're lucky enough to get there.
If you're lucky enough to get there. And who knows what the world would have been like. And I was like, why not do it now while I'm still young? And so I thought, rather than following through that property investment portfolio, I'll throw it all out and start again. Well, not start again, but just do something that really lights up my soul and lights up what I feel is important to people and community, because I think it definitely comes from the fact that it impacted my life profoundly in how I felt in my physical body, how I could emotionally express myself and understand the feelings that come along with life, and also the thought patterns, like what we think and how our life is very much shaped by what's going on inside the mind.
And I think if people aren't curious and they haven't tried yoga before, they kind of don't get their heads round the fact that it's more than just a 1-hour class, you know?
Yeah, there's a big difference. I tried lots of sort of, I wouldn't say I was a super sporty person, but I knew that I wanted to move my body when I was younger. I would dance, I would do different things. And I even tried like weight circuit classes, but it always felt like a bit of a chore. Like it felt like it was something I needed to do, maybe even on an aesthetic point of view. Like I wanted to tone up and lose weight or do something that was more of an external thing rather than how I felt truly inside. So that was the difference for yoga. The intention behind the hour that I spend on a yoga mat isn't necessarily to look skinnier or better, bigger muscles,
be more bendy.
Be more bendy. And so I do think it's a bit of a shame that sometimes yoga gets classified as this kind of thing that you have to do splits and do all crazy positions. If that comes, yeah, it can come. But if you don't want to do yoga to that kind of extreme, you just do what makes your body feel comfortable, what makes a little bit of discomfort. But in the long run, how are you going to live out your life in this body? How are you going to live out the life with your mind and your thoughts? And you may have up to 100 years here. So let's make it great and good and fulfilling.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect segue into the theme of this year's International Day of Yoga, and that is Yoga for Healthy Aging. This is taken directly from the United Nations website. This year marks the 12th International Day of Yoga with the theme Yoga for Healthy Aging, which emphasises the importance of yoga for all ages. Yoga can be a valuable practice for healthy aging because it supports many of the abilities that help people stay active, independent, and engaged as they grow older. By combining gentle movement, stretching, breathing exercises, and mindfulness, yoga can help improve balance, flexibility, strength, and mobility, whilst also supporting mental well-being and stress management. Because yoga can be adapted to different fitness levels and health conditions, it offers an accessible way for many older adults to maintain their physical and emotional health. These benefits support several goals, including promoting independence, reducing fall risk, enhancing quality of life, and encouraging person-centred approaches to health and well-being. Any thoughts on that?
I do believe part of the reasons why I wanted to do yoga forever is that being in chronic pain really does affect every other element of your life. I guess when I had the knee pain at 25, it was moderate. I could still walk up and down stairs. But if that declined more, or some days it would get swollen and it would hurt more, and then I started to distrust that I could do things with my body. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I've got a knee injury or chronic knee pain. I can't do that thing. And so you start giving up on maybe things that you'd enjoy, like going away, traveling, because if you get lower back pain, it's really hard to sit for long periods of time on a plane.
Good point.
If you want to see other things, maybe seeing family. Maybe some people, want to pick up their daughter or their son or grandchild even, and their back pain is so severe that they can't pick up a child. And it's not just the physicality of what chronic pain does to you. It's also the mental focus. It just takes you away from maybe even doing a fulfilling day at work because your mind is constantly connected to the pain. So essentially longevity and physical body, mental body, it really is all interconnected.
Definitely. And yoga helps profoundly with undoing posture bad habits and patterns as well, right? Because I'm so aware of it now because of our teacher training, like rolling my shoulders up, back and down because I hunch over a laptop so much. And it's like now I'm like super aware of it. But if I didn't go and practice yoga, which I'm not saying everyone should go to teacher training, although it is amazing. But like even just having that reminder from your teacher 2 or 3 times a week, or even once a week, I suppose, roll your shoulders up, back and down, and saying, remember, like, we live in a world where we hunch over our laptops quite a lot, and make sure you opening up your chest, because otherwise you're going to be compensating and it could end up with all these conditions in the body. And yoga is incredible for that. And it's kind of like almost undervalued or overlooked, I think, when somebody's going into yoga, and they're like, I'm going to do it because I do want to be more of a gymnastic maybe.
Yeah.
When
I looked at healing my knee pain, firstly I did go to a physiotherapist, and they get you to do sort of a repetitive pattern to try and help the functional movement of the injured joint or tissue. And it's great, but it sort of does definitely focus on one part of your body, and sometimes you've created compensatory patterns and you might be load bearing on a different hip. And you know, I had from my knee injury, I had some rib injury, and so if you don't address the first injury, it can creep up through the body and the skeletal structure. Essentially, anything that we repeatedly do will eventually create.
I'm just thinking about footwear.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and like I mean, the amount of times I've been in one of Zoe's classes and we start off on the feet and we're like retraining our feet because so many people have, like me, the dropped arch thing, right? Even that, like it travels up the spine and you can throw your hips out, your shoulders out. And it's so common amongst all of us. It's just like, it's going to be actually really interesting to see how like our generation ages and what that looks like, you know, in the physicality terms.
Yes. Over the years.
Yeah,
repeating
of
technology and changing. So they even say like our heads sort of leaning a little further forward and we're getting a heavier sort of forward position, which strains the neck and shoulders. The usage of laptops and phones and computer wear and it's starting to like cause sort of pains and already like repetitive strain injuries on wrists and thumbs and things. So it is interesting how anything our sort of workload would place on us, where even if it's a kind of a relaxed workload where you're sitting in a chair, has profound impact on how your body is going to handle load and stress, even just walking and your patterns of walking. So I'm a big believer that sort of yoga is a holistic way of moving the body. You're not just looking at one joint. And I also find that it almost goes to kind of physiotherapy movements, like a repeated squat or a lunge or what we've been practicing this week, dorsiflexion of the ankle. And these are things that we help us walk, and it helps us not trip over things on the floor. But it also means that I think physiotherapy can get a little bit boring or a little bit expensive.
I agree on both parts.
If you do 6 weeks of physiotherapy, it's great. It heals the injured tissue. I think I definitely refer people to my wonderful physiotherapist friends, and I really respect their work. But at some point, there's got to be something like that maintains you, if not progresses you into being able to do a little more if that's what you want. You know, if you want to be able to touch your toes and do up your shoes, you know, if there's something that you're feeling like, oh, I get really tight in my lower back or my hips and it prevents me doing these things, then so something that you can maintain your posture and health of being in your body without necessarily having to go to some boring rep class. You know, every session of yoga can be kind of this inspiration of how the body's moving.
Totally. And while we're on the subject of load, I think we need to talk about stress and the impact of that on the body. And again, when we're talking about like what this generation is going to physically look like, I feel like we're in the most stressful of times. And, you know, I know there's been 2 world wars. And yet, even so, I would still say that I feel like now is probably a more stressful time in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for what we're experiencing as well in our generation. You know, it's probably been 70 years since the World War. So, you know, like there's a few people for the first time is experiencing this kind of level of concern over the future.
Yeah.
There's the stress of employment, because this is a big thing, right?
Massive,
If we don't have work, we can't put food on the table and have a roof over the head. So the cost of living crisis is real, and that adds more stress, not just on us as individuals, but on the family unit, on social outings and friendships and things that we might have to decline because we're either under a lot of pressure or we just start to shift away from some of those things because we're so stressed. We don't feel like socializing.
And how yoga helps me in 2 ways, and definitely I'm going to throw it to you on the how we can relieve some of that stress from our bodies when we practice. But in another way, what yoga also reminds me to do, and we'll talk a little bit about the philosophy in a sec, is like bringing it back to basics of like, what do I actually need to survive? Okay, I need a roof over my head, probably. Okay, I need food to nourish my body. But like the other stuff, that I feel like I need to achieve towards because everybody else is, and this is what we're told. I think yoga does a great thing of like putting the brakes on that noise and just going like, whoa, okay, slow down. Like, let's bring it all back. Like, what do you actually need? You know, and what is happiness? And, you know, is that going to make you happy? Or could going for a walk in nature actually and taking some nourishing breaths and stuff? And I don't want to tiptoe into like sounding too cliched or generic on like, you know, the well-being stuff. But I do think perspective yoga really helps you kind of come back to yourself in that respect. Do you want to add on anything to that before we talk about the actual stress on the body side?
Yeah, I can talk about contentment. Is that
please?
Yeah. So
please.
there's a philosophy in what we call the niyamas of contemplations of life, and it is santosha, and it means to find contentment in who you are, how you exist, how you interact with the world, and it sometimes feels like there was probably a turning point for me of going from I feel happy when I go on holiday. I feel happy when I go out for dinner, hang out with friends. I feel happy when, and so I thought my life was all, you know, buying new clothes. You know, I felt happy when I got a promotion at work, and I was driving for all these things that I thought happiness was, and it's not to say that those things didn't bring me some sense of happiness and joy, but they were very fleeting. So it was like once I achieved one thing, I was just on to the next thing. And then in this big sort of period between the next thing, I could start to even feel a bit depressed or, oh, I haven't felt that feeling for a while. How am I going to satisfy this feeling of an external thing providing me this happiness? And I think if you chase that so much, it can even lead to the opposite effect, you know. So you're chasing happiness and it makes you feel a little bit more depressed. So when I changed my thought patterns around happiness, and it can still be the word happy, but it's a feeling, it shifts. And for me, it was the shift to contentment. I'm content having a meal at home that I cooked myself. I'm content with sitting by myself eating a meal. I'm content when I'm having meals with friends. I'm content when I'm catching a bus to work. You know, it's not feeling like you have to have the next best shiny thing. I'm content that I have a phone that works. I'm content that I have a laptop or a computer that works. You know, you don't have to have shiny things to fill you up. And when you do get a shiny thing, obviously celebrate that too. You know, it is about, you know, you don't have to neglect yourself and reward yourself when you've done some great things, but finding contentment in the day-to-day existence rather than seeking those highs that are perhaps stagnated or far apart.
Definitely. I'm content when I have a good night's sleep.
How good's that?
So good. So good. So just touching briefly then on stress in the body, because obviously like we can't change what's going on in the world. You know, we might not have the luxury of being able to change jobs or careers, or, you know, if we've got to put food on the table for multiple mouths, if you've got a family and stuff. So like, how does yoga help in terms of, I suppose, managing stress?
Yeah. I guess I could give an example. There was a time when I had got a promotion and I'd sort of stepped into this role. Actually, it was when I became a consultant, and I had to host 6 executives. And this meeting I was chairing took about 3 months to make it happen. And the night before, I was crippled in bed, sick and ill. Like my body was just rejecting everything. I had to crawl to the bathroom. My body was really struggling, and I couldn't stop it. I felt like it was food poisoning, but what it was an intense level of stress that I wasn't ready for at the time. And I had to call in sick the next day. And that one meeting that we'd got, these 6 executives together, had to be cancelled and postponed. And it's because stress is actually a physical response in the body too. People think stress exists in their mind, but it's actually a physical, like it affects your digestion. It affects how you absorb minerals and nutrients into your body. It affects your breathing, your heart. So it affects so many levels. It affects the tension of how much tension we put in our shoulders and the rest of the body. So stress can lead to many, many things, right? And yoga itself taught me ways to recognize what is stress that sort of like, I guess, what can I do with this message of stress? What is my mind ruminating on? Why is it stuck on this same track? Oh, tomorrow you've got this thing and you're stressed about it. It's not going to go well. Or have I got any of this sort of inner dialogue that's increasing the mental suffering and increasing the stress? It could also be that, you know, you're not fulfilled in your job. And so then the mind feels a little bit distracted by things and you don't want to do the job, but you're forced to do it. As you said, sometimes we have to do these things to get food on the table. But just having a little sort of like an oasis of your day or your week where you can just go into this space and realize that's not all in life. You're not just your job. You are experiencing life, and your body and meditation can help take you on that place to realize that you're not going to stress every waking moment of your days. And it's not just in your sleep that you get deep rest and renewal. You can actually spend part of your waking hours enjoying life, in not necessarily having to be at the beach or going places. You can just literally sit for 20 minutes on your yoga mat, and it shifts your whole relationship to life and the routine stresses that might pop up.
Yeah, good answer. I'm conscious of time, so I don't know how quickly we can do this. It might have to be a bit more of a summary, but I do think these code of conducts that it's basically, I think when I try and explain it to, say, a family member or something, I just say I can't swear on the pod. Well, I could, but I'd have to bleep it. It's just how to be a good person. Isn't it really? It just like strips it all back. Like the thing is with yoga is it's above religion, isn't it? Yes, it's a spiritual practice, but like some people think it's a bit culty or whatever sometimes as well. I think that sometimes, again, it's for people that don't actually experience it themselves. But yeah, the yamas and the niyamas, or maybe we should just stick to the yamas for the purpose of this. So what do you think? Do you think we've got time to go through it all?
Well, I guess I touched on the santosha of niyama. So yeah, maybe we can stick to the yamas now and then...
Okay, yeah.
So essentially the yamas are, there's 5 of them, and they relate to how we interact with the world around us. And these are, I can list them off, ahimsa, which is non-violence. And that kind of makes sense, right? We don't want to, well, you know, if we notice that our words or behavior is hurtful or harmful to other people or even to our own self, we don't want to create more suffering. And that's what ahimsa stands for. So how do we reduce suffering and increase this sort of compassion and care for things, not just your own life, but maybe, you know, it can be nature. And when we develop that deeply, we care that there is an ocean that's clean, and we care that there's trees that grow and give us this oxygen support. So not only for our own life, again, it's just the beautiful diversity of trees. And so when you start to really sort of connect to this concept of ahimsa, you don't want to hurt anything that is part of our world. You want it to sustain. You want to see this life continue. Yeah. To the point where ahimsa can be in your family unit, you know, like ahimsa to your children, ahimsa to your parents, ahimsa, nonviolence to your significant relationship. And that comes also in form. So we talk about nonviolence in physical form, but also nonviolence in verbal form, emotional form. All of these things come up. And it's just to remind ourselves that sometimes we slip up. Sometimes we say something that's a little bit mean, or we didn't really mean it, or maybe we just weren't thinking as we said it, and it really hits powerfully, energetically into someone else, and they feel really upset by it. So we have to realize that our behaviors do have impact on others, and that's where ahimsa really is the number one ones.
Well, and also ahimsa to ourselves. It's like not only can words hurt others, they hurt ourselves as well. And I think we're actually even more horrible to ourselves than others, unless we're really mean.
I mean, yoga reminds us that we can have an inner critic, and we have to look at that. We have to become self-aware of what is going on in our own mind. And then sometimes that inner critic can come out also to others, and
Yeah.
or even stop us from doing our fulfilling life. The inner critic says you're not good enough to do that, or your inner critic said you're not smart enough to go and do that degree.
Right.
It's the inner critic that's harmful in a way that it stops you or prevents you from fulfilling life.
Yeah. But putting it in the way of non-violence, that does actually then you go, oh, no, I don't want to be a violent person, you know, whether it's like to others or to oneself. You can try, you know, we talk a lot about silencing the inner critic and stuff, or questioning, is what I'm saying actually true? But I like it in terms of ahimsa, because there's something, I think, even about the word violence where you go, oh, no, I don't want to, you know.
It's a powerful word.
Yeah.
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 It's a scary word, you know.
Yeah.
I think violence does make us feel a bit afraid. So if we can do non-violence, it makes us feel safe.
Exactly. Yeah. So what about the next one then? Satya.
Satya, yes.
Satya.
Yeah, it's truthfulness or truth. And I don't know, I guess for me, I want people to be truthful to me. If they say they're going to do something, they do it. And I think therefore it also falls on the fact that if I'm truthful to others, I'm not lying, I'm not showing up as a different person, I'm removing any masks, and I'm living truthfully as best as I can in the moment with the knowledge that I have. We also say satya is truthfulness only in that moment, because it's going to change and expand as you live. Because what your truth was 5 years ago, if you reflect upon your life where you were 5 years ago, today is different. Even in perhaps your thought processes, or something that you've changed or done something differently about who you are, where you work, what you do, your truth changes. And therefore, it's also allowing other people to have that space to change their truth too. Sometimes I use the example of, I have a friend who was in a male-female relationship, and then after about 6 years, they separated, and her next partner was a female. And people were like, how could you do that? How did you change? And she's like, well, I fell in love with someone important to me. And that was her truth. And that's okay. And I think that's what we sort of encourage in yoga, is recognize your truth is, as long as it's not hurting anyone else or harming anyone physically and all those things, your truth is giving you this sort of freedom and liberation to be who you are. And it's for that moment, because that same friend, 3 years later, separated, spent some time by herself, she found a male. And that was also the next partner. So I think sometimes people think what your truth is has to stay that way. And then you're stuck in a box and you can never change your ideas or thoughts. And I was like, that's what Satya comes into it, because it's truthfulness in the moment. And you do your best to try and know your truth. But it may change and develop over time.
Moving on to the next one.
Stay non-stealing. And that kind of makes sense. No one wants anything stolen from them, right? I mean, I don't want to walk in and go, oh, someone's robbed my house. Okay. It makes you feel very distrusting.
Yeah.
I think it makes you question everybody in society. If one person does you wrong, say someone steals your mobile phone, all of a sudden after that, you're going to go around protecting your mobile phone, because you're thinking, will that person steal it? Will that person steal it? So any stealing in society creates distrust. And that's where, what might feel like petty crime can actually lead to more serious crime too. I hear of someone, oh, that person tried to steal my phone, so I ran after them and I fought them. Then we go back into the ahimsa. Violence. And it's not to say that you have to roll over and, let everyone steal things from you, because no, that's what we're not cultivating. We aren't cultivating stealing and letting it go by. We're cultivating this concept that a non-stealing creates disruption in society, and we need to look at ways to protect their assets, their privacy, non-stealing of people's creativity. It can come into plagiarism, all these sort of things, honor people's work. honor their time, honor their money, honor their effort, honor their life.
Yeah.
Asteya.
It really landed for me when I heard, it might have even been you that was talking about like the stealing of time, stealing someone's time. So somebody that's constantly late. And I bet like, and I can be late sometimes, I'm guilty of it, but like now I'm so much more mindful of it. If I'm meeting somebody, I'm like, okay, Asteya, I don't want to steal their time by turning up late, because I am one of those, I'm just programmed that way, like so many people are. I'll get the last possible bus because I don't want to be left waiting around for my friend to arrive. Whereas that bus might be late, that bus might break down, something might happen. And maybe a one-off is absolutely fine. But if it's that constant thing of like, I'll just turn up when I turn up.
Yeah. And I think that's why I sort of go back to Asteya as like stealing energy.
Yeah.
because if you think about it, someone's time is their precious thing, right? It's what we all have, but it's finite. And we might think it's just 5 or 10 minutes here or there, or, we run late for someone. And then that might mean that they also run late getting home. And by the time they get home, their children are in bed. And all of a sudden they don't see their children that day because they were delayed at work. So honouring like your colleagues' time, honouring your friend's time because your friend has also scheduled their time with you. And so I think it's not just a man-made time. It's life,
Yeah.
It's spending life together. It's moments of life. And I think running late can seem like a simple thing, a little thing, but added up over numerous occasions, it makes sometimes, I guess, we don't value their time and their life, their energy.
Absolutely. I'm going to let you pronounce the next one in case I butcher
Brahmacharya.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Brahmacharya. This one's an interesting one because I think it can get a little bit lost in the text of yoga. And when you search it, Brahmacharya can come up and it looks like it's celibacy and abstinence. And this becomes hard for me to even speak about sometimes because it's about putting it into context that makes sense and at least how it makes sense to me, and I share that. So Brahmacharya, obviously we have things in our life that give us some sense of pleasure, sexual intimacy being one of those things, but it can also be eating food. Food is a pleasure. We get these senses on our tongues, so different flavors. You're like, oh, I had this great kombucha the other day, and I don't know, like it's the bubbles, the flavor.
Yeah.
So we have pleasure centers, and including not just even just looking at things, like some things are aesthetically beautiful, and you seek the beauty in what you see. And so there's pleasure of the eyes, there's pleasure of sound. I'm sure you guys have all heard some fantastic sort of frequency that sort of sends chills down your spine, and you're like, oh, that sound and vibration is amazing. It could be a singer, or it could be music being played by a radio station. The other one would be like the other pleasure centers that you'd be really noticeable is like if you smell something pleasant with the nostrils. And how nice is it to walk into a space? And often in yoga we even use incense to make it more pleasurable as a space to go to. But all of this to say is that pleasure is there in our relationship to the world, and we can sometimes get overly attached or addicted to those pleasures.
Yeah.
And that attachment can grow into very unhealthy things such as over-attachment to sexual intimacy. And this is where brahmacharyas come in, a sort of moderation of your senses so you can still enjoy things but not be the main driver of everything you do in your existence, because that's still putting yourself outside. So you can still feel connected to the world around you, enjoying the pleasures of life. But there's elements of brahmacharya that when you really sort of focus deeply inside, and you can do this through meditation practices, you can feel this incredible state of bliss in simply existing, not because of something outside of you, because you exist in this body, in this human form, and you feel each breath and you're alive. And that in its simple sense can bring us a huge amount of joy and help us detach from seeking sexual pleasure, detach from seeking sensual pleasure all the time. Yeah.
Okay, we've got one more yama to talk about. Non-attachment.
Yes, it's something we did today in the training. Mm-hmm. So I guess a parigraha is the practice of non-hoarding or non-over-attachment. Because I like to say that it doesn't mean that we detach from everything, because that can be an overcorrection. You're like, oh, I'm attached to that thing. Okay, chuck it all out. Get rid of all those things. It's kind of like having a wardrobe of clothes and getting to the point where you can't put anything more in there, and you just keep hoarding and hoarding and hoarding. And maybe at one point you just get so sick of it, you throw all your wardrobe out. And so it's the non-attachment is trying to find this, like, as you let something go, you can put something else in. If you're a traveler and you live out of a backpack, you need to know how much you can take. And at some point, if you try to put more things, you won't be able to move. You won't be able to carry your own backpack. And that's kind of the idea of hoarding, that you take on so many things that you can't move. Like it could even be in your house. You could walk into a hoarder's house and you're like, yes, they're collecting a lot of things. And the idea behind this could be, there's many reasons why someone might hoard things, but we've put our self in objects, and this thing is very sentimental, or I might need this in the future, so I have to keep it now because something might come up. And so they start collecting things. And if we keep putting ourselves in external objects or external, like in people, sometimes we get overly attached to people. And so we get scared to do something without them because they're kind of our safety or security person. It could be even a place. Like I'm so overly attached to a place I can never leave. So sometimes these attachments can cause us suffering. And if that's the case, then we need to practice a parigraha, letting go of things, because eventually things change. We can't carry everything and everyone and all the things forever. At some point, we might have to say goodbye and move on. And that's part of the parigraha lessons, letting go, making space for new things.
So a lot more to yoga than just stretching on the mat then, isn't there? And we've just literally scratched the surface there. I guess let's kind of start to sum things up then. What does yoga mean to you?
Wow.
Yeah.
Big question. I'll try and keep it short.
Okay.
And what does yoga mean to me? I feel like it's a way of living and realizing that it filters into every aspect of life, like how I try to become more consciously aware of how I'm treating my husband, and I'm trying to become consciously aware of how I'm treating my clients that come to yoga, my friendships, how I treat my own body. So yoga becomes I guess, a framework, a guide that has been around for maybe 3,000 years. So it's not me making it up, and it's not something that has just been, okay, yoga postures, they can say is more recent, but the contemplations of philosophy of why we exist, what is this planet doing, why are we floating around in the universe on this glorious ball that's close to a sun that gives us heat. And if you ever have questioned, like, what am I doing here? Then maybe finding yoga is going to give you some sort of food for thought to delve into that answer of what am I doing here? And yoga for me is a bit of a guidebook to research while I'm here, living on the planet.
Yeah, well, we're living in a time where people might not necessarily identify with more organised religion, more traditional religions, but they still long for meaning, ritual, connection. And I think yoga offers a different way of exploring that sort of spiritual side of being human. So in that way, it's maybe more accessible to some people a little bit, perhaps.
I believe so. I believe that you're not becoming secular. What yoga, the word itself means, is to unite, to yoke, to bring everything together. And so I feel like you don't really have to choose one or another. Yeah. That's just yoga. Yoga just brings people together, and it doesn't matter which lineage you come from. You're welcome. It's uniting.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we do come from a mental health and wellness app, the Happier Life Project. What role do you think yoga can play in supporting mental health? We've covered quite a bit of it, to be fair, but anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I guess that's the thing that probably yoga stands out for me and for many of the people that come to practice yoga is that it's all encompassing. So mental health needs some physical health with it. So you do need to go through what we call an active and passive state of being in your day. So you need a bit of activation and get your heart rate up. And then you also need some relaxation. And yoga will help that. And that will help your mental state. And then obviously there's elements of contemplation which probably feels a bit like psychology. Almost like you're kind of your own therapist on the mat because you're going, what's that thought doing? And how's that thought impacting my life? And it's almost like an inner dialogue with yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe that self is your spirit. Maybe the inner dialogue that you're having, is that a healthy thought? How's that affecting my life? And should I rearrange that thought to make it a bit more positive? I guess some cognitive behavior therapy. I don't know, there's some different psychological concepts, but I do think that in a yoga class, I feel physically, emotionally, and mentally renewed. And I think that's a big part of the mental health piece is feeling all of those puzzles. And finally is like a spiritual thing of like, what am I doing here? What is this thing of connecting to the earth, and what is this thing connecting to universe and stars and the soul of others? And we uncover those things, especially if you felt like your spirit has been broken. And I'd say that especially going back to those first sort of concepts of yoga and the yamas, if someone steals from you, you might think the whole world is bad. And if someone harms you or harms someone you love, your spirit just gets a little dented from these experiences, and it can taint how you see life and maybe the life of others. And I think if we don't rectify that, you carry it for a long time. You carry these sort of spiritual dents, and we need to lighten it up a little bit. We need to bring light to your soul and feel like maybe there are good things about existing in this lifetime. And that can also, I guess, eventually help your mental health, that your soul is feeling lit up and enjoying moments of life.
And another thing to add to that as well is connection and community. And I think if you're lucky and you find a place like Ministry of Yoga, like I did, you meet like-minded souls. And it's more than just like, you know, doing some squats in the gym and maybe nodding at each other if you like go to that gym regularly and saying a hello. It's like there's the opportunity for it to go deeper than that if there's time. Sometimes like we share things and they could be quite personal things, but we feel in this very safe and sacred space. But things can come up emotionally as well. Like we've not really even had time to go into that aspect of it, but like how when we move and when we breathe in certain ways and we're kind of put into, if we've got a great teacher, this sort of state of being that it allows especially suppressed emotions to bubble up, and then we can release them. And so you're having this experience, but then there's somebody either side of you on the mats either side of you, and then it can foster some great friendships and this kind of almost family kind of environment. Some studios not so much, some it's more like we've talked about even on this TTC, it's more about for the gram, and it's like it looks aesthetically very cool, and that's a kind of different experience. Maybe that suits that person that is choosing that studio. But yeah, I just think in a world that's getting increasingly disconnected, the yoga space is a reminder of just, again, bringing it back to basics, and like that, like we're supposed to be in tribes.
Yeah. I have done yoga in some small spaces and yoga in some big spaces, and I actually did notice quite a bit of a difference, and hence why we limit our space to 8 to 10 people per class, because there is this sense of being seen and having maybe a conversation with someone like your teacher.
Yeah.
So for me, that built a deeper experience of yoga when I could speak to my teacher in person. It wasn't just walking into a big hall and the teacher's up the front somewhere and I'm just following along, and then we all anonymously walk out again without saying a word to each other. And so I took on my teachers' kind of concepts where they had like 6-8 people per class, and probably by the third class you would have seen someone regular and you would have just smiled and nodded, and then because the teacher's engaged with you, maybe the teacher's going to interact with you and another person, and next thing you know, that day you just felt less lonely. Or because I think these days you can do a lot of like yoga postures, and you can even contemplate on philosophy, all of that online. But I think the last piece of the puzzle that we can't forget is that we are, a community species. We need each other, and we need people to trust. We need to have people that we can feel are reliable and trustworthy to share life with and to share some things with. And if it's a yoga space or a space that does this well, they will give you the privacy, but also the connection when you need it. And it would be great to see some of our small scale studios continue with, I don't want it to be like, so I'm really conscious of communities turning into cults. And that's also known in the yoga concept that it can get a little bit weird. And I think that's important, that's constantly addressed, that, behavior has to be addressed, and things that we're always being mindful of each other and not creating a segregation from society. We are yoga, we are society, we are community, and whether someone is a yogi or not does not make them in or out. Everyone is yoga. It's just whether or not they practice.
Yeah. What do you think then, just a quick follow-up, it's like yoga is also now a global multi-billion-dollar industry.
Wow.
So, and that's from the designer outfits, like leggings, to the mats and the prices of retreats and classes and stuff. It's like, and I know you do try and keep it very kind of attainable, I would say. But there is also this sort of side that I see of this elitism kind of thing that is, and I think, and I bring this up because there might be people listening now that go, yeah, that all sounds amazing, but then they'll be looking on Instagram and see a teacher going into these like crazy poses and be like, well, there's no way I can achieve that, so I'm just not going to go anywhere near it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely true that you have to find the place that suits you. And I mean, I did hear from one of my teachers once that said that a place that they worked at, they required everyone in crop tops to teach. And I was like, wow, like that's yoga? Like all the teachers have to wear crop tops? And so I was like, wow. Unfortunately, as the industry has probably got bigger and there's more profit in it, people try to, add on to their bits of that and take what they can, and maybe the depth of their yoga knowledge hasn't quite got there, or they're doing it purely for a profitable idea and rather than the sort of the deeper intentions of yoga, which is we've already covered off. But it's a life-changing sort of supportive guide. And so I think some of those things definitely I would have got caught up in my first year or two of yoga. I would have gone into some of these big brands and gone, oh, this is a fancy yoga mat, and I'm going to wait and I can get some nice fancy clothes. And the longer I obviously studied yoga and realized that I'm not my clothes. And that was a good awakening in yoga. And I started to move away from this sort of image of what yoga should look like. And there's been times in my yoga teaching career that I have felt like, should I take photos for the Instagram and start putting myself online? And I was like, how does that resonate with me? And I was like, well, some people might really like that. But for me, I didn't want to spend 3 hours of my day taking pictures of myself. I actually want to do 3 hours of my day teaching yoga to people. But it is a fine line on Instagram. You do need to have some sort of presence in the social media market if you're running a fitness or anything related to physical movement. They kind of want to see you. But I say dig a little deeper if you are looking for a yoga studio or a yoga teacher training. Dig a little deeper and see what their relationship to the yamas and niyamas and things that are really will guide you on a pathway that's much deeper than that sort of initial steps of clothing for yoga. You know?
Yeah,
if you come in with a baggy t-shirt and baggy jeans, not jeans, that make it a bit hard to move. But just it's not a fashion parade. It's yoga.
Yeah, and yoga is supposed to be without ego. Like this is what we're supposed to remove ourselves as the ego, and it's like it teaches us so much on the mat, but it also teaches us so much off the mat. And I guess to wrap things up, Zoe, I'd like to ask you what the greatest lesson yoga has taught you personally is.
Whew. Wow, big question.
Mm-hmm.
Probably to take moments and enjoy life. Be present. Absorb every moment you get when you can. You can't be conscious and absorbing every single moment, but when you get a good one, you sit with it, let it resonate through you. And it could be just sitting on a step, feeling the wind on your skin, watching a beautiful sunset or sunrise. It could be hearing a loved one speak. It could be a sensation that you're breathing and you're existing on this planet. And I guess yoga has just taught me to embrace the small things, celebrate the big things, and just, navigate this life with as much as I possibly can to enjoy and fulfill the soul's desires or the spiritual experience.
Incredible stuff. Thank you so much for today. I could ask you so many more questions because obviously you know how much I love yoga, but we'll just point people to check out more from you. Your studio is in a very convenient place in Lisbon, and I know lots of people, especially in the summer, like to come to Lisbon. So you can come in, and trust me, Zoe can teach all levels, and she's an incredible teacher. So if you do get the opportunity to come to Lisbon, and Ministry of Yoga, we'll put the links in the episode show notes. But what's the website for you, Zoe?
It's www.moy Portugal.
Yeah. Ministry of Yoga, MOY. And also, she does do retreats as well and teacher training. So it's always worth keeping an eye out on the website. And you have an Instagram as well.
Yes, we do. So we have Ministry of Yoga, the Instagram handle.
Yeah.
So, and we tend to do some retreats each year. We've only got 2 more this year, but, reach out and, something might come up.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun just being, with like-minded people in the studio, saying hi for 1 class or 5 classes where we love for people to come by and
you do
see if yoga works for them.
Well, thank you so much. And I can't believe we've actually managed to have a cohesive conversation because of the day we've had already with this intensive teacher training. I mean, guys, we've talked about philosophy, anatomy, the physical side, but like really getting into the micro details of like, I see I'm doing it again now. I'm like, shoulders back and down, straight spine. But I'm leaning into a microphone, so it might be something I need to work on. But it's already been a day. So thank you so much for like giving me more of your time and energy.
It's my pleasure. Happy to always spend time talking about yoga. It's always a joy. So thank you, Gabby, for having me on.
Hello friends, it's Gabby back with you. If you are suffering with your mental health, there is a crisis button on the My Possible Self app, which will signpost you to the correct information for immediate expert advice. Those of you who are listening on one of the podcast platforms, the My Possible Self app is completely free to download. You can access all of the content, so you don't need to worry about it costing you anything. If you found this episode helpful, please do subscribe and leave a review and share it with your friends. And to find and follow us on social media, we are most active on Instagram, and you can find us at My Possible Self. And I've been at Radio Gabby. Until the next one, do take care. Bye for now.